predators. Who grew up with shady criminal parents? What did your mom or dad teach you that was okay that you later learned was illegal or seriously frowned upon? My blood father was a drug dealer. He often came home with some really nifty stuff. I later found out it was stuff that he got from people who didn't have cash on them but still wanted to buy. I think the thing I felt most guilty about was the Game Boy Advance I was given, that we either only had for a little while or had forever. When he said that, it usually was forever. It had a heap of games with it, and I went through and started new games on all of them, erasing the existing save files. Well, he took it back after a month, so I guess whoever it was paid up, and I feel really sorry for their kid. Mommy or daddy was an addict and used their Game Boy Advance for collateral, and when they got it back, all their saves were gone. I was only a kid at the time and didn't really know the context in which I was handed the thing. But I know it belonged to a kid. There were quite a few young learning game cartridges alongside Mario and Pokemon. If we were at home and they yelled, "Pigs!" we were all to hide behind the couch and be silent. If we were in the car and they yelled, "Pigs!" we had to crawl to the floorboard and not move a muscle. I was kidnapped in grade 3 by my dad's supplier. He held us for 2 days. We had no idea. My sister and I met him before lots of times. When he showed up at our school and said our parents were on vacation and we had to go with him, we did. They had soda and Oreos and a puppy and a Sega Genesis, and it was the best weekend of my life. Found out 20 years later when my mom was complaining about never having a vacation in her life. I reminded her of the vacation and she said, "You idiot, you were kidnapped." Oh, cool. My dad was investigated by the FBI for racketeering, but they were unable to press charges on him. He was also being sued by a major financial entity for racketeering as well. Anyways, when I was a teenager, my dad had a lawsuit brought up against him by multiple employees for unpaid overtime. He ordered me to go through the boxes upstairs in the warehouse that we had to find all their time cards. The storage area was a disaster. Papers everywhere, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find them. So I told my dad it was no use. The time cards weren't there. My dad then yelled at me, telling me that he needed those time cards and said that all these people were trying to rip him off. So if I had to, just make up time cards for them so that they were working 40 hours a week with no overtime. But don't bother telling him about what I did to get the time cards when I had them. I just had to have them for him one way or the other. I didn't think about it much the last bit until much later. Long story short, I ended up making time cards that he used for the case. He won. Realized several years later that my dad had used me for forgery, and when I confronted him about it, he just laughed and said I was a minor at the time and nobody puts a minor in jail for a white collar crime. I've run into some of those employees since then when they accosted me for being his daughter and how they would want to punch my dad or worse. If it was him they ran into, I've always confessed this to them. Ironically enough, they have all said that they would punch him on behalf too, because the fact that he used his own daughter pissed them off even more. And about the racketeering thing, he loved laughing about that and calling himself a don. When I was going to take over the business several years later, after the forgery bit, his oldest employees gave me their loyalty oaths. I ran like hell. My dad absolutely was a racketeer. My dad stole a few things in a sneaky way so my brother and I would have one each. In one instance, for example, he bought a Game Boy game. He bought it back to the car, removed the cartridges, and took it back into the store saying the case was empty. He did the same thing with those Pikachu Tamagotchi things. I think the biggest steal was a PlayStation 2. He actually did purchase one. My mom went in and picked it up, but when leaving the store, the door person didn't tear the receipt. So, my dad took the receipt back in, picked up another PS2, stuck the receipt on it, and walked out. The door person tore the receipt this time, but obviously didn't pay attention to the time of sale. Dad also ran a huge business of installing chips in PlayStation so they could play copied games. He would rent games, burn a copy, and then sell them to other people. We had a whole library and catalog of copied games, and Dad had quite a few customers. Looking back, I see how dodgy it was. and why he told me not to tell people about it. My parents would often get me to answer the phone as a young kid, like 4 or 5 or older. Anyways, the people on the phone always asked if Jones Mosick was there. My parents would coach me, no, Jones Mosick lives here. You don't know who that is. Well, as a kid, I really didn't have a clue who Jones Mosick was because dad was always just dad and went by his nickname. Didn't find out for years what my dad's real name was. I guess I helped my parents invade a few tax collectors and God knows what else. Also, me and my sister used to go play Barbie in daddy's clubhouse. It was our favorite place. Dad built it himself in the backyard, and they even had a big bar, a pool table, and they brought a velvet couch for me and my sister to play on while Dad played pool and visited with my uncles. Dad always called it his clubhouse, too. So when people asked me where my dad was, I'd say Dad probably in the clubhouse. To which Mom would always get mad at me, and I'd be so confused because that's what Dad and everyone else called it. But I wasn't supposed to talk about it, apparently. Yeah, my dad was in a biker gang. Edit. Adding more stories that I've mentioned in response to below comments since people seem to get a kick out of them. My dad, when he would take us to places like aquarium or amusement park, used to always try to get us in cheaper. Well, one thing about me was that I was always really an oblivious child. This both helped and hurt him, such as phone calls. I mean, legitimately didn't know who Jones Mosick was for years, guys. But in the case, it backfired. So once my dad was trying to get us in the park or something, and he lied about my age to get in cheaper. Insulted immediately, puffed up, and said, Dad, I am not 6, I am 7. Cue the eyebrow raise of the attendant, and my dad puffing back, You're fucking 6. Good times. I can't remember if I got in cheaper or not. Probably not. He was so mad. After he told me, if I say you're fucking 6, you're fucking 6. I roll, dads are weird, I thought. My dad hated cops growing up. He used to call them fucking pigs. He always made snide remarks about cops just eating donuts and being literally useless. He gets stopped by them a lot. Just general harassment. I guess everyone knew him and his general associates. Anyways, one day we stopped at the Wendy's, Tim Hortons split restaurant. Now, if you don't know, sometimes restaurants share a building together. In this case, we were only separated by a short wall to the other side of Tim's. While we're waiting for our burger, and me being like 4 or 5, whatever, I'm up on my knees looking over the partition. Well, there on the other side of the table was full of cops. I remember feeling shocked and suddenly exclaimed very loud, Dad, you're right. Them pigs do eat donuts. My mother was mortified. She pulled me down to sit. The cops all looked over. I guess I started laughing, luckily. My dad thought it was hilarious. So, this question brings up a very specific memory. My dad never said explicitly that what he was doing was acceptable, but he certainly didn't tell me that this was wrong. I was between the ages of 5 to 7, unsure of the specific timeline on this, and my mom is often working in the evenings while my dad's sporadically around. One night, my mom is gone. Dad gathers me to go for an adventure. Usually, this means driving around the city and looking for stuff. Well, Dad pulls up to the hospital and parks. He sits me in the car and gives me a script saying, Recently we moved here, a lie, and that he hurt his back while moving boxes, mega lie. I play along because, hey, it's my dad. Sure, whatever he says goes. Any other specifics of that night are hazy. I think he managed to talk his way into some sort of painkiller prescription. This was the early 2000s, so opioids weren't so visible as now. My dad has been successful treatment since then, but that's a big memory that stands out for how screwed up my younger life was. My mom was a drug dealer. There are so many things I could list, but I'm on my phone, so just a few things off the top of my head. Smoking pot. When I was 4, I chased my mom through Woolsworth drugstore screaming, Mommy, Mommy, you dropped your joint. Don't you want your joint? She hurried faster, sessioned me, and I got a big talking to that afternoon. Snorting coke. I was in the 2nd grade when I got sent to the principal's office for teaching my friends how to make lines with salt and use part of a milk straw to snort it. My mom was really pissed. Don't call the cops or go to any straight people. I don't know why at first, but I lived in terror of straight people. I got a congratulations for making it through FBI questions when I was probably 6 years old when they raided our land. SWAT teams are scary. Boobs are good for smuggling. Cleaning out stems and seeds is a fun summer job. And don't say anyone's name on the phone. Those are just a few things I can immediately recall. Oh, I forgot to add how every now and then people in our circle of friends will move far away for a while and change names, and we're ever allowed to call them by their old names. My mom also made us believe that morphine was excellent pain reliever for all ages. Quite a few things. Backstory. My bio dad was convicted of murder and got away with another murder through claiming self defense. No clue if it was truly self defense. And apparently had a third murder that he never got caught for. He was still constantly from people to things inside stores. One of my earliest memories is wanting this super cute pink hat. I believe I was around 8. He put it on my head and told me to walk to the car. I remember asking about paying, and he said, "Don't worry, just walk." So little me walks outside the doors with the heart pounding, and the alarm goes off. I freeze and run back to my dad that was still shopping. First lesson I can remember I learned, you just need to keep walking when those alarms go off. He died a few years back. My brothers and I are decent people. My brother's a great dad despite who he had as a dad. Edit to answer some of your questions. No, none of us 5 kids have murdered anyone as far as I know. He was an extremely abusive father. I was the only daughter, and he sexually, physically, and emotionally abused me from 7 to 14 years of age. I ended up in foster care at 14. I have 2 great parents who were my first foster family, a loving biological mom who does her best, and even more siblings from my former foster parents. I have my own struggles, but you never know the trauma we went through if you met any of us. Thank you for all your kind words. Wow, I didn't expect it to take a turn like that. I'm sorry that that happened to her. It makes me feel really bad. Especially when you have all those brothers, and because I'm the only girl too, and it just feels like when you have brothers, you should feel protected. But in the family, when things like that happen, it's hard to not know if that's even normal or to even say something to somebody because that means you have to admit that it actually happened. I'm glad that he passed away now, and I'm so glad that she ended up with a great foster family because that's rare. You don't really hear about that a lot. But I'm also glad that you, like she said at the end, no matter what they've been through, you would not know that meeting them. So that means they must enjoy life to the fullest. And that's what's up. I'm going to leave it at this. Let me know if y'all want me to do a part 2 of this question because I definitely will. If y'all made it to the end, I appreciate all of your time. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good rest of y'all day and God bless.